So it's all right for you to start, but not for us to start.
So she can sign this too. All right. I'm calling the meeting to order for October 20th. And I'll introduce our, well, I'll let you introduce the group this evening.
The distinguished guests?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Annrosso. I'm the enrichment specialist tutor at Berlin Memorial School. I am here with 3 fifth grade students, Neil, Gabby, and Jessica, and we would like to tell you something about a special project. This summer, I was invited to participate in the Harvard Forest protocol. They have a schoolyard research project, and the particular project that we are working on is called the Woolly Bully Project. There is an invasive species called the hemlock woolly adelgid, and it attacks hemlock trees. The students who are here will tell you something about the study itself and what we have done so far. Gabby?
The woolly bully is native to Asia. It was first reported in the United States near Richmond, Virginia in 1951. By 2005, the hemlock woolly adelgid has been found in parts of 16 states from Maine to Georgia. Many hemlock trees have died in these states from the infestation of the woolly bully, particularly in parts of Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. The hemlock woolly adelgid develops and reproduces on all species of hemlock, but only eastern and Carolina hemlock are vulnerable when attacked.
The minuscule insects of the woolly bully can be spread by birds and other forest visitors, and this includes humans. The woolly bully is an adelgid, meaning that it attaches itself to a pine tree, and in this case, the hemlock, and then it harms the tree by feeding off of it. The woolly bully first came from Japan and somehow managed its way over to Massachusetts and other states on the East Coast. The woolly bully can reproduce 2 generations a year. The spring generation is usually born from spring to early summer. The 5th grade is hoping to help prevent any new generations from occurring.
We are collecting data from 3 hemlock trees at 2 different sites near the school. For our first data collection, we measured the new growth on 12 different branches. In the spring, we will go back to check the same branches for signs of the woolly bully. We will look for small white sacs that are full of eggs. In the fall, students will measure the new growth on the same branches again. If the woolly bully has attacked the branches, there might be less growth.
Here are some pictures. I'm not sure whether they're large enough for you to see on camera of the students doing the data collection. As Neil said, there are 2 different sites. There are no hemlocks on the school grounds. So we have some on South Street, and actually there's 1 hemlock tree next to the town offices on the property next door that we have permission to check. So we have a picture of one of the hemlock trees, and some students measuring the growth of the terminal branch. Here is an example of a healthy hemlock branch. And Neil, would you like to show what everybody measured?
We measured this part from the leaves that come out on the sides right here. We measured the stuff that has grown on the sides, or in the front, in between the 2 sides.
Okay. So we are part of a study. There are lots of schools in the state that are also collecting data. Our next job is I'm going to a workshop actually in a couple of weeks to find out how to take the data that the students collected that's on the student data sheets, and put it onto the Harvard Forest website. And all of our information goes along with the information from other schools in the state, as well as some schools in Connecticut. The forest ecologist at Harvard Forest started in Connecticut 10 years ago, and he has moved up into Massachusetts. And he's interested in knowing how far the infestation has gone. I don't have any information about the town of Berlin at this time. I have asked the Department of Conservation and Recreation if they have any information from the town, and no one has let me know that they have. So we may be collecting data, at least in our small area, that will help not only our town, but the state, and we'll be able to compare the information and data that we collect with what they collect and see if, in fact, the woolly bully is progressing and taking over certain areas. Is there anything else that any of you would like to say, Jess or Gabby or Neil? Are there questions that we might be able to answer?
Did you find any woolly adelgid in the hemlocks that you looked at?
We did find a few on a few branches. I think we just found 4 branches with a few of them on.
However, in the fall, our only job was to measure the new growth. In the spring is when our task is to actually look and count each little sack. And Jessica, would you like to show this picture to people so you can see what an infected branch would look like? And each of those little tiny white sacks can have between 150 and 300 eggs in it. So a branch like that with lots of little sacks is a problem because each of those eggs will grow into something that can suck the life out of a hemlock. Yes?
Will you be working to get rid of the egg sacs?
That is not part of our charge. What we will do is let the people whose property we are on know what we find out. And there are a couple of things that are recommended by the U.S. Forestry Service. One of them is an injection that is done that gets rid of the adelgid. I'm not sure how long it lasts, but that is one thing that they have suggested. If the tree is in terrible shape, then they recommend having it cut down. And there are hemlock forests from Virginia up the coast where that has happened, and it has actually devastated the forest. And one of the questions that we are looking at, and everyone in the future, is, will the woolly bully attack hemlocks around here? And if so, what will that mean to that forest? How will that forest change?
Wow, very interesting. Any other questions? You guys did a great job.
Nice job. Awesome.
Very nice job.
Would you like to sing it first? I'll do it with you.
And the Shaman of Barrows.
My father's property to see if he can find some of these. I didn't know that.
Oh, thank you, Ray.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you to Annrosso. That was a very nice presentation. We're working on the approval of payroll and payable warrants. The consent agenda has the minutes for September 14th. Open session. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Was there anything to be said on the minutes?
I didn't hear anything.
No? Okay. All in favor of approval of the September 14th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Communications, I don't believe we have any. Petitions and audiences relating to items on the agenda. Okay. Do we have a CPAC report? Okay. Hi, Joe.
Hello. I have a copy of the annual report from last year for Nicole, since we presented it last week. So you guys already have copies.
Yep.
So we had a great year last year, and we're moving full steam ahead this year. Our pie fundraiser is already wrapped up, so thank you to everyone who purchased a pie. They're going to be coming in November 10th, and the details of the wheres and the times will be known later. But it was very successful, so we're very pleased, even in these tough economic times. We didn't sell as many as we did last time, but we did pretty well, so we're happy. Next week, we have our first presentation of the year. The Federation for Children with Special Needs is coming to present on suspension and discipline in special education. And that's going to be Thursday night at Tohoto instead of our regular Tuesday meeting next week. And they're going to talk about the rules and due process and procedural safeguards under IDEA. So that should be interesting.
What time is that?
It's at 6:30 next Thursday, so it's a little early in the Tohoto Library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening. First thing we'd like to discuss this evening and just bring the public up to speeds, shall we say, is the FY13 budget preparation schedule. And we are beginning to do that as we speak. We did have I did have discussions with the town administrator in Boylston and the Berlin town accountant, and we are projecting forward a budget, the timeline, including capital planning requests to both towns by January 2nd of 2012. Of course, this won't be the finalized budget, which of course will be subject to discussions with the financial advisory committees, board of selectmen in each town. And but we have our proposed schedule laid out right now. We've already met on October 5th with the administrative team. On October 26th, all the memory drives and data are supposed to be completed and returned to the central office. So at that point in time, we can begin the construction of the three individual budgets for presentation to the regional school committee and the other two school committees. November 21st and 22nd, I'll be meeting, Courtney and myself will be meeting with the building principals and also with Judy Valancourt to review their budgets line by line and to ask any questions you'd like to ask regarding those particular budgets. In December, we'll begin the budget presentations to the individual school committees for their review, discussion, and approval. We're just cautioning people in the towns, town officials are very aware that there's a number of large items here that cannot be accounted for in the budget that could be subject to major change. Things such as obviously Chapter 78, circuit breaker receipts, school choice reimbursement, charter school charges and reimbursement. Also on the town side, I mean, just lottery receipts, highway funds. I mean, all of these kinds of things will not be finalized in January and will take place as the months go along. And of course, as we know with the state, even though we're required to submit a budget on time, and the towns are required to submit a budget on time, the state is also supposed to do so, but many times they do not. So at this point in time, that's where our budget timelines are, and that's what we're preparing to present to all three school committees with that timeline in mind. Circuit breaker audit, this is to let the committee know that we have been selected, which is this is fairly standard routine, for what they call a desk audit, which will cover claims that we have submitted under the circuit breaker special education program for FY11 services that were provided between July 1 of 2010 and June 30 of 2011. A desk audit means that basically they're asking us for a lot of information that we have, that we need to send to them to indeed document the fact of the claims that we have put in under the circuit breaker for reimbursement. So we will comply with that, and obviously Ms. Valancourt will be doing a lot of the work to supply the information along with her secretary and the central office to get this material out to the Department of Education and get to them on time. So it's a lot of work, but there's a lot of money involved here, and it's an honor to make sure that all the invoices that we have, everything we've submitted for claims are indeed verified and accurate and true. And I assume we will have no issues with any of that.
Excuse me, Dr. DeBrule?
Yep.
I'm just happy to give you the update that the information has been submitted. Janet Ament was very efficient, and when she prepared for circuit breaker submission last year, she had all of the information at her fingertips, so she was able to submit it.
Wonderful. So look forward to a report back from the state.
Okay.
October 1 enrollments, these were presented at the region, but I'll present the Berlin results again here today. These are as of October 1, 2011, the October 1 count, which, as you know, is very important. Chapter 70 reimbursement and other reimbursements are spun off of this data. This data is used quite a bit for documentation for all kinds of purposes for the state for reimbursement. Currently, as of October 1, in pre-K, regular ed, we had 7 students. Pre-K special education, we had 3 students for a total of 10. Full-day kindergarten, 28 enrolled. Kindergarten half-day, 3 enrolled. Grade 1, 17 students. Grade 2, 28 students. Grade 3, 25 students. Grade 4, 23 students. 5th grade, 22 students. 6th grade, 32 students, for a total altogether without the preschool of 202 students. If you combine the preschool, it's 213 students. And we also have, at this point in time, 24 students in the school choice program enrolled at the Berlin Memorial School. Also wanted to report that, which is very consistent with last year. I think the difference is 1 student difference in terms of the enrollment. Homeschool students in 2010 and 2011, we basically had 6 students that were enrolled in homeschool programs that would be attached to the Berlin Memorial School. This year, we have 3, so we have a reduction of 3 students from 2010-11 to 2011-12 at this particular point in time. And that concludes the superintendent's report on October enrollment and homeschool students.
All right. Do we have a finance report? Courtney?
Yes, I prepared the FY12 General Fund Budget Report. And this is a new format that I'll be using. And I've added the columns of projection through June 30th, 2012 and a variance column. Now, because it is the beginning of the fiscal year, and actually the very beginning of the school year, when we move on through the year, it won't look, I mean, obviously I'm projecting that we're, spending everything, and of course, being new, I don't know exactly where some of these things are gonna change. That's why, but I did wanna show you that we will be having these 2 columns going forward, so we can carefully monitor the budget, but everything's looking fine. I also added, I forgot to tell you, I'm sorry, the budget adjustment column too. And these budget adjustments are included in the budget transfer request form that I have here also this evening. Okay, so I have that, and I have already entered those. And the budget's looking fine. Everything's covered. We had just a few things we had to move around, very small items, nothing very large. One of the things that we're actually doing with all 3 school districts is the change that we spoke of with regard to the 240 SPED grant, where we're just moving expenditures that used to be in the general fund, like say tuitions, and then moving them to the 240 grant, and then that is funding the SPED coordinator and I believe the psychologist also in this budget. Sometimes I still get mixed up between, because I'm working on all 3, but it is in here, just a special ed coordinator. So then that's already been entered and taken care of also.
And just to refresh everyone's mind, the reason that we're doing that is so we can save 9% no, basically on retirement, which in these grants get to be a lot of money, so that's significant, more money that we can use internally within our local budget. The other thing I want to just stress to the committee too is I believe in what I've seen in the past what the committee's received from the former administration as far as the budget is concerned. Basically, I think you received just bottom line numbers that were reported as the school year went along, with the exception, I think, of maybe school choice and circuit breaker. But here you will see that you have the budget line by line by line. So you have total transparency in the budget. I mean, you have what we have. So, you know, it's, once again, total transparency and disclosure and everything that's in the budget for anyone to see, not just the school committee, but anyone that is, that has an interest in going through all these line items. So, and I thank Courtney for that, because I think that's a lot more work to do something like this than it is to report on just bottom line items by account, by grouping accounts.
It's much easier to read, I have to say, just going through and understanding.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good. I'm glad.
So all of the adjustments that you were talking about, why were these adjustments needed, or the transfers, was it underfunded?
Yeah, there was actually across all three, that seems to be something I've seen, just some items under budgeted.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing large, but, you know, a little here and there. But as you can see, bottom line, though, I mean, the budget is in very good shape, though.
Good. Any questions for Courtney? Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and I also, I believe you have it in your packet, I also did prepare to you, because I was requested by the region, the school choice assessment.
Okay.
Only because it had been requested, I guess John had prepared it earlier, and all I did with regard to this particular form is updated exactly what he had prior, except I updated and changed FY11 to the actual numbers. And then in FY12, 13, and 14, all I did was adjust a small amount, the receipts projected in those years, only because of the amount we received in FY11. Again, this is a working document. It's nothing, you know, except through FY11, but it's just really for discussion and sort of monitoring purposes to look forward with regard to the utilization of those receipts. So I did prepare this also. I did not change anything about what we would be applying to the budget going forward, because to be honest with you, I wasn't here or privy to the discussions of why we picked that dollar amount, so I just left that as it was too, and certainly as we go forward with the FY 2013 budget process, I'm sure that'll certainly come up at that time. And then we can revamp this anytime that it needs to be updated, we can do that at that time.
Well, I'm sure we'd be interested in what you think of the amount that we applied to the budget, if that's an appropriate amount, and so on.
We'll have a full discussion with the school committee about it. We'll bring the budget to you.
Yep,
Okay.
definitely.
I have one quick question, Mike. It was really back on the October 1 enrollment. I'm just wondering if the BMS choice column, do we really have 24 kids at Berlin Memorial and Boylston only has 12?
I'm sorry.
Or are they switched? We do have 24?
And now, as of tomorrow, it will be 25.
Okay. I guess
20 you referring to?
this one.
Yeah, okay, I think I have that.
And the
Okay,
choice
24.
columns.
Okay, yep.
Okay, because I thought, maybe they're switched, because usually Boylston has more school choice than we do.
We do.
Okay. And then when you look at the FY, or the 2010,
10.
Boylston had 17 and Berlin had 13.
Correct.
So it's a big change. Okay, just checking.
It is. You're correct.
Just checking. All right. Okay, are you all set, Courtney?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
The principal's report, Carol.
In your package, you'll find a report to the school committee, and ask you to take a look at, and appendix A and B to look at as well. So in preparing this information, I really tried to balance the reality of what's happening at BMS, because I hear different rumors, oh, what's happening, you're falling down, you're all kinds of things, and in fact, that isn't the case here. But do we need to make improvements? Of course, and we always do. We're always looking at that. I think we're really starting to look at that as a staff in a different way than maybe had happened in the past. But I still feel confident in what we're doing, and I see a lot of good things happening. So I guess we'll start with the adequate yearly progress. That's always a big highlight of the media attention, and the fact that we didn't make AYP this year in either math or ELA. If you look at this over the past 3 years, we have 2009 we made it in ELA, but we didn't make it in math. We missed the target. It was 84.3%. 2010 we made it in math, but we didn't in ELA, and our target that year in ELA was 90.2%. As you can see, it jumps significantly every year, up around 10% that we're supposed to reach. So we are considered a very high level, and those schools who are trying to attain that high level, it's over 80% of the schools did not make AYP this year, and they didn't tend to be the bottom schools. They were really the top schools. It's just much harder to get up to that level. In fact, they're estimating by 2014 it'll be over 90% of the schools will not make AYP. So we're sort of in good company, but it's a very uncomfortable company to be sitting in.
It's a really difficult concept to understand for the
It is. There's a lot
general
of
public.
different statistics involved in this, and it's a
Right.
very complicated process in how they arrive at the numbers. And then this year, for example, when we didn't make it, our score, our performance target in ELA was 95.1%. That's a really, really high number for a school to achieve. Would we love to? Of course we would, but I don't think it's as bad, as negative as it's presented.
So when you're at, like, let's say 98%, what do you do? I mean, do they ask for 2% more, 100%? Do they?
Absolutely.
They're asking, yes.
Absolutely.
They are
Yes.
asking for 100%.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I think that's why you see more and more states petitioning the federal government to be released from, be granted a waiver from NCLB, including the state of Massachusetts, because it's just basically an unattainable goal. Plus, at Berlin Memorial School, you're talking one student.
Yeah.
You know, because the percentage is so low, you're talking the class size is so small. You know, even if you have 20 students or less, they don't even report it. So it's problematic.
Yeah.
And we're watching for changes with the kind of political climate out there and what's happening with AYP in the next couple of years, because that certainly is on the table to petition for a waiver for this. So we're kind of just watching what happens, but we are aware of it, and would we have liked to have made it? Absolutely, but we're also recognizing that it was very hard to do, and we're just not there at this point, among many other schools. The more important piece, I think, is really looking at the MCAS scores over 3 years. And I presented in this report all of the grades and where we were. I looked at a combined score for proficient and advanced and a percentage for that. We tended to fall somewhere in the 60s to 70 range. I was glad to see in 6th grade this year combined scores. We did improve. We were up to 85%. From 2009, we were at 65% in combined in ELA and math. We had a consistent score each year of 65%. In 5th grade, we did decline. We were at 81% 2009. This was in ELA, 71% in 2010, and then down to 63% in 2011. In math, same thing. Our scores went from 51% in 51% in 2011, but in 2010 they were 73%, and in 2009 they were 77%. Still not really high scores, but certainly we are declining there. Grade 4, number of students receiving proficient and advanced in ELA improved this year to 61% from 56% last year. They were 67% in 2009. And then in math, we had our combined scores of 50% last year to 61% this year. So we are seeing some good growth in grade 4. Grade 3, we declined from 73% in 2010 to 62% this year, and it was 57% in 2009. The number of students receiving combined scores in mathematics declined from 81% in 2010 to 74% this year, and it was 64% in 2009. There are a couple things I wanted to note around these scores, just to keep in mind too, that we did implement a new curriculum during this period of time, and that usually tends to have we usually try to give it 7 years to successfully implement a new program. We're changing language, we're changing the way we do things in a particular program. So there may be a couple of bumps along the way as we move through this with mathematics, and the same with literacy. We were working in Leslie. It's a much different kind of approach than a basal approach to reading. It's much more comprehensive. It takes in a lot of different components, but it does take time to get that off the ground, to get all those parts working, to get staff on board and understanding really in depth what needs to be done as far as the teaching of those different skills and strategies. So I have to say, in the couple of years that I've been at our school, I'm really proud of our staff. I mean, I think that they've embraced all of these changes and all of these challenges. They are really working very hard to learn the curriculum, learn the programs, and do what they need to do, collect information, and really talk with one another. And all of us are talking about how we improve learning, and not just for MCAS, but just even looking at it as the child as a whole. And I've said to them in staff meetings, these are one measure of a child's ability. It's good information for us to have, but we really do look at the whole child, all of their different needs, and we look at them individually as well as collectively. So I'm really grateful to the staff for how hard they've worked through these past couple of years with them. I also wanted to note in this report that the actual number of students, for example, sometimes represented in these percentages, and I think Mike did touch on that before, can be misleading. For example, it said that 12% of the 5th graders were reported in the warning category for 2011 for ELA, and that only represents 4 students from the population of 33 students taking the MCAS. So 21 students were advanced or proficient out of 33 children, and 8% were in the needs improvement category. So sometimes those large numbers of 12% only represent a few children, though, depending on the class size. So the most important thing, I think, that we looked at the data, and it shows that the framework standards really need to be focused on. There are certain areas we really do need to concentrate on as far as looking at the test scores and areas where we're weak and where we're strong. Open response questions in ELA and mathematics also need some work. But we do see growth in 5th grade, for example, even though their scores are low. They improved in that area of open response questions. They worked very hard on that. And not only is 5th grade working on it, we have the children all the way down to kindergarten, 1st grade, now practicing answering open response questions. So it's coming up through the grade levels. It's becoming more comfortable for children, I think, to be able to respond to these questions because they have more practice with it. So I think we're going to see a growth over time with open response. And that tends to be a weak area anyway in MCAS each year across all districts. So action plans are probably the most important piece of this for us. We've put into place a few things already, and we're waiting. We're actually waiting for some grant funding to help us out with putting a few other things in place. So far, we've really focused on the data analysis. My grades 3 through 6 have looked very carefully at that, and they're targeting specific test items that do demonstrate patterns that are strengths and weaknesses, and we have that to look at. We have that for individual children. We have that collectively for grade level, so we can really pinpoint through the years what areas really need to be worked on. One of the things that's happening, we notice in math, for example, that we may need to realign some units of study that we were doing with this new Envision program, finding that while the program itself has been well received and is fitting very well with our current frameworks, and now is moving over to the Common Core standards and those frameworks, that the units are maybe coming a little too late in the year in time to prepare for the MCAS tests. We're noticing that, so we may be doing some shifts in units of study, which is very simple, makes sense, and really the teachers, now that they've gone through 2 years of the program, are saying, oh yeah, let's move a unit up earlier in the year. So we're doing some of that work. Also, so they're practicing more with open response and short answers, not only answering the question successfully, but also in ways and strategies to approach the question, using highlighters, breaking down the question, really getting to understand what they're being asked to do, and making sure they answer each question thoroughly. We find that a lot of the kids miss points just simply because of that reason, not because they don't know the answer. In grade 4, always additional practice with long composition work. We're going to be scheduling again 2 mock MCAS tests this year at least, with the grades 3 through 6. We're going to be doing, we're already working on a timeline for open responses so that they're doing more one a week this year, and we've already started analyzing the open response in our grade level groups and our teams each week. We're hoping to get some mathematics tutoring for students who have scored needs improvement and warning. And we're planning to run some MCAS test prep sessions where we'll be inviting students in. It'll either be before school or after school from January to May to really target how to answer the questions on the test more than just the content itself. We'll be really learning the skills and strategies of the test taking. And we're going to continue with our professional development for staff and hopefully be able to purchase some software to enhance some of our math skills. So the last piece of this is really, I had taken a look around the surrounding areas, and we're very similar to towns like Harvard, Neshoba, Narragansett, West Boylston, very similar results to them. In particular, 4th and 5th grade math scores reflect higher percentages of students in the needs improvement and warning categories in all of those towns. So it's something that's, for some reason, is collectively there for those 2 grades. And our goal is just to continually improve, and now we'll be implementing Common Core standards. We're already working on that in the younger grades this year, and that's our MCAS for this year. Do you have any questions?
What grade are the students taught how to study for a test?
Well, we really are doing that now from 3rd grade up. So it's a good question. I think because that's the time when they're first presented with the test, so we're able to use past tests as practice for them. But there are also components of that I think that the younger grades are using as well. The open response, for example, multiple choice. They are doing that, maybe not in the same test-taking format, but certainly in a way that is very similar to what they would be doing. Did you want to speak to the early grades?
I was just going to say that that's what we do. We do the open response, as Carol said, but we also teach them not to just give an answer, how did somebody feel, but why, to explain further. And we really try to teach them what it means to explain your answer, how to respond. And then we give them a lot of multiple choice, true and false, fill in the blanks, so that all through the year they're just preparing for how you go about answering it, but also where do you find the answers if you're having to read a small section in reading.
Right.
Where do you find the answers? How do you find the answers? So we start that even in 1st grade.
Or even, when you read a chapter in a book and then you know you're going to have a test on it. I remember my kids bringing home like a piece of paper that the teacher had put together with things that you need to study. Mm-hmm. But when do they learn how to pick the things out of the reading themselves so that they can study for the test on their own? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but I think we do that even in our grades. Like we have the kids in math, for instance, highlight the words "in all," or how many are left, or whatever, so they see those words that they need to know. And we start really at the very beginning saying, it doesn't matter what the people's names are, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, fish or birds or whatever, but what's the key information? And we have them highlight it or circle it or underline it. So we try to do that even at our level.
Yeah,
You know,
because really, I mean,
small way.
eventually they're going to have to do it on their own. And I think when you get up to middle school, you should hopefully have those skills, and it really helps.
One of the things I think that the teachers are discovering is almost, how do I say this, helping too much. So we're talking a lot about a concept called gradual release of responsibility, in that they need to do that, and then they're called if they don't do it, and they need to go back and do this, rather than, I think what's happened at times is we've been so intent on being there for them when they're taking tests and saying, oh, you know, remember to, don't forget to highlight, and, you know, if you want to take out your, now it needs to be, and you will take out your highlight, and you will do this, and we'll let you do this and practice it, and then we're going to go back and revisit it again.
Right.
So it's almost contrary to what we've wanted to do to help them so much, because when we get into the test setting, there is nothing you can do. I mean, I honestly, and I'm not allowed to look at the test, I couldn't tell you what was on them this year, except for now what's released to us, because you can't even look at the kids. You can't give a little kind of side look at them. You can't. So, so we, you know, there's a lot of constraints around the tests these days. And there was another piece I wanted to tell you about too. I'll think of it. Oh, go ahead, if you have any other questions.
Anybody else have any questions?
You're on a good track to improvement. I like the way that you focused on the different steps and how we can continue to improve in our scores. So.
Right, and maybe keep this in mind when next year comes along. Did these things that you had as steps work?
Make a difference, right?
Yeah.
Right. You always have to look at
Right.
that, absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
You have some upcoming events, Carol, that you want to tell us
I
about?
do, just a couple. So November 2nd, that's a Wednesday, that's our conference day, parent-teacher conference. There's no school for children, but we will be running childcare there, the fifth grade Students for Nature's Classroom. Angela Yildiz is heading that up, right, to take care of the students while parents are in conferences, and that's a great help for everybody. And then we have November 4th, Link is sponsoring movie night with Toy Story 3. So that'll be just a fun family night. Just come in the cafeteria, popcorn and drinks, I think. And then Veterans Day, you're all invited. It's November 10th. It's a Thursday at 1:30 for our annual Veterans Day gathering. And Bob Rainville is working with us on that as well, as he does every year.
Okay. Judy, do you have a report for us this evening?
I do. Would like to share with you the results of the spring coordinated program review when we had a visiting team from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education come in for our 6-year review. A couple of differences from 6 years ago in that 6 years ago we received a consolidated report. So all 3 districts were rolled into one report. This time we prepared 3 separate packets of information for our reviewers, and we have received 3 different evaluations from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So what you're hearing tonight will be strictly the results of the review for Berlin School District. We were reviewed in 3 areas: English as a second language, civil rights, and special education. There was also a desk audit for Title I, We have not received the results for English as a second language or for Title I desk audit results. So what I'll talk to tonight is civil rights and special education. In the area of civil rights, there were 26 different criteria addressed. And in spring of 2005, our results were such that we were found to be in partial implementation in 8 criteria, and 1 criteria was not implemented at all. This time around, Berlin Memorial School was fully implemented in the area of civil rights. So that was a very nice thing to see. I wanted to publicly thank Cheryl Nelson for her efforts and her work in putting together the civil rights portion of the program review. She did a great job, and she worked very closely with the principals on that and with me. I prepared the special education and ESL components. In special education, there were 59 criteria that needed to be addressed. And in 2005, it was around the same number of criteria. We had 28 criteria that were considered to be partially implemented. This time around, we received 1 commendation, for which all of you should feel very proud. It's our reviewers found that our Special Education Parent Advisory Council and had exemplary relationships with school administration and school committees, and they were very, very impressed with our PAC's presence at school committees and the welcome they received from school committee members in all three districts. So that's great. That was a lot of hard work, and it was nice to have folks recognized. And for those of you who were around 6, 7 years ago, you'll truly understand the wonderful feeling associated with that particular commendation. We had 52 criteria that were implemented in full, and we had 5 criteria that were partially implemented and 1 considered not implemented. And I've listed in the report the 5 areas, I listed the commendation, and then the 6 areas that were either partially or not implemented. 1 was around some paperwork associated with when we identify a child as specifically learning disabled. There's about 5 different pieces of paper that are associated with that finding of a child being specifically learning disabled, and not all of the pieces of paper were in the file on the review. I think what's important is that we're accurately identifying a child who is specifically learning disabled, but we will work on the appropriate forms. There are 3 of these findings that I have made a note that the administration is in dispute with. I voiced that dispute. It didn't matter, but so we will develop.
In dispute with the State Department of Education.
With the State Department of
Okay,
Education, yes.
Not internally.
Yeah, no. With the interpretation of our execution of the criteria, one of those is in our process when we revise an IEP between yearly meetings. They have indicated that we do not always provide parents with appropriate written notice, and that's not accurate. We do. Another piece that was in dispute was related. It was parental consent, that we don't always ask for parental consent. And then the 3rd area that was in dispute was that we don't issue 2 copies of the IEP and placement page to the parent when we send it for signature. And Mrs. Ament has done that for more years than I care to recall. What we have not done is always document at the bottom of the cover sheet that we're including 2 copies of it. We've since corrected that. So those were the pieces that we're addressing, but don't necessarily agree with the whole thing. One area that we did agree with is a portion of the IEP when we make a recommendation to pull a student out of the regular classroom to provide small group instruction, we're supposed to be very specific in our reasons why we're pulling the student out. And so their concern was that we weren't specific enough. So we've been working on that and improving that. And then the last area is in the area of providing communications in English in the primary language of the home. We were acknowledged that we do provide translations and interpreters when the primary language of the home is not English. What we're not doing is documenting that we're providing those oral translations. There needs to be multiple signatures attached in the native language as well as in English that we have in fact provided those oral translations and that they were understood. So I think the areas that we were cited on are easily rectifiable. I've already written a corrective action plan. We're waiting to determine whether it was accepted. But I think I'm personally very proud of the work of the folks in our schools at Berlin Memorial. They took our last review very seriously, and they've worked very, very hard to correct multiple items. And the pieces that we've been cited on are areas that we can take care of and that do not substantively impact the education or the quality of education that our children with special needs are receiving. So kudos to the folks in our schools for all the hard work that brought us to this point.
And to you too, Judy, because 6 years ago, you've made great strides since 6 years ago.
I do have to add, Madam Chairperson, in my former life, I did this for a number of years. I have never seen a school district, ever, okay, in all that time, come out with a coordinated program review that did not have a citation. Ever.
Right. Uh-huh.
Try as I might to have been the first.
Ever.
So when the English as a second language information, if you want to share it with us at the time that you do get it, that'd be great.
Sure. I'm fairly certain, I'm very well aware of the items that we are, will be cited on, but I'm also very well aware of the growth we've made in that area, and it's been substantial. And actually, in their initial observations, they commented at how far we've come and how much we've done for such small school districts. We're considered low-incident districts, and
Still required to have a full range of
absolutely.
services.
Yes.
Absolutely, we are. And we're required to have the certified personnel, and we do, and not all districts do.
Right.
So, you know, I knew that we weren't going to be fully compliant with those criteria, but where we've come has been significant.
Right.
And so I'm really proud of that as well. But I certainly will share it with you.
Yeah, thank you. And the CPAC needs to be commended too. You've done a great job over the last 6 years, really coming into your own and your own group and doing a great job.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Judy? Okay. All right. I believe several of us missed the bus meeting. Was it a week ago, Monday? I think so. And Ruth did attend, and so, and if Angela has anything to add, just update us with the meeting that you attended.
So 7 years from now, maybe they'll be talking about the bus group. Just saying what a great, it isn't a group of people that have gotten together that want to make a difference in the community for the schools, support the school committees, support the administration and the students. Last Monday night, basically we did brainstorming on how we can promote our schools. So Angela did a lot of writing, and we came up with quite a few ideas and tried to put some priority on those items. So that's kind of what their first agenda item, or first task that they're going to take on. Remind me, Angela, what does BUS stand for? I'm sitting here trying to remember.
Berlin United to support our students.
There we go.
Well, we have some Boylston citizens also that participate in the group too.
Right.
Yes, well, we can change
Yeah.
The bus.
No, I'm not saying that. Just for the audience at large. That is cute, though.
Sounds like we have a list. Oh.
So it's an open group to any community members, and if you want to attend, I believe the next meeting is, Angela, in November.
The second Monday of the month.
We're always going to try to be the second Monday of the month, correct?
Right, at 7 o'clock in 1870.
Right at the old town hall.
Right, so that would be
7th.
November 14th.
November 14th?
Yes.
Okay.
So what were some of the main ideas that came out? Not to put you on the spot.
Well, we talked a lot about things that tend to happen in the schools, and it kind of stays within the schools. One was the MCAS, the Toronto schools system, whether we had a press release or we did have the same kind of talk at the regional committee. Thought that was something that somehow we wanted to promote. Signs in town, whether we could utilize. There's a lit sign that the DPW use for things that are happening. Let me see. I don't know if does everybody know that the Congregational Church has a Friday pizza night once a month?
I have heard about it.
I've seen the signs, that's
So we might have a Toronto pizza. Just who knows, somebody's coming up with that. One thing we talked about that we thought that would be very beneficial would be to have some kind of a meet and greet with both Boylston and Berlin parents. Lots of times you don't get to build that relationship until your kids are like on the soccer field or on the field hockey field or wherever they are. So maybe hopefully having more of a social interaction with Boylston parents, so there's more of a cohesive relationship there. Anything you can think of that I'm looking at your list here.
Well, one thing that we're trying to do is, as Ruth mentioned, we want to make sure the community's aware of things that are open to the public at BMS, like the Veterans Day program, the musicals and band concerts at Tohoto that, families that are just at Berlin Memorial aren't aware of that might want to attend. So we're looking at kind of ways to make Berlin feel proud of their schools and also feel like Tohoto is our school too.
Right.
And so I'm getting feedback right now from the secretary at Tohoto of upcoming events, and I'm hoping to get upcoming events too from Berlin. That, for example, one of our bus volunteers is going to post around town right next to the flyers for the 1870 upcoming events. I'm hoping to kind of post a flyer too of like congratulations kind of things with the good news that's happening at the schools, and also the upcoming events that are open to the public. That sort of thing that would be changed once a month, and also broadcast that maybe on cable news, broadcast that on the Berlin Google groups. That's sort of just kind of grassroots of taking pride in our schools sort of thing.
We talked about the places they go that's on, I believe it was on the Tohoto website, where our kids are accepted at colleges, making parents aware at the elementary school. And for instance, one thing that came to mind when we were talking, if you attended the regional meeting or if you saw it on cable, if it's running yet, Lisa Sequeira spent some time and brought back to the school science kits worth $20,000 each. And her excitement and her enthusiasm was just amazing. And for our kids to be able to do this, which would be, they swab cells in their mouth and split the DNA and do things that if you're not in tune to see and hear what's going on, you have no idea. So it's things like that that we're trying to promote and get people to know what amazing things are going on. So that's kind of...
I think once you are involved at Tohoto, you sort of take for granted that everybody knows what you know.
Don't.
And that's so not true. I think there's so many people that don't know what's all the great things that are going on, even at Berlin Memorial or Tohoto, because they may not have kids in one of the schools or both. And so I think, in order to educate the general public, I think we do need to do a better job of communicating these things to the public.
Through the chair, I know that I've spoken with Diane Tessari, and she is, and with the other administrators at the elementary, and she's now feeding information down to the elementary principals to ask if they can be put on the elementary websites, like the national semi-merit winners. Okay, and pretty soon we'll have the Abigail scholarships just came in today to the superintendent's office, and a number of those things, as the MCAS scores. Will be fun, and just information about sports even sending it down to the elementary people so they can put that up on their website and in their newsletters to get the word out to parents at a much, because parents are looking at where their children are going to be going at a much, not when they get to be the 6th grade, they're starting to look in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Right. And just to add to that too, we have a vice president of Link now who is our PR person, and she's Irene Derogi, and she's doing quite a bit as far as getting stories out to the press and photos, and she's taken a lot of photos. She was there at Community Reading Day, had some wonderful photos we're going to be getting on the website, and then hopefully she can send some to the papers as well. So she's enjoying that role, and we're grateful to have her too. So those are I think, really good pieces. And I think everybody's really trying to work together, my school council and BUS and Link, to promote the school more. So, and our website's getting better. I mean, it's definitely adding more and more every year. So,
I've asked a couple of times, I think, at the region about certain things, like how many groups are that the kids can join, and the usual answer from Diane Tessari, the principal this year, is, Chris, it's on the website. So I think maybe just checking the website once in a while, is very helpful. So, well, thank you.
Yeah, and the PR is such an important piece, even when it comes to budget time, because as we know, sending our kids to charter and choice schools costs us money. So if we can keep them in-house and let them know, obviously we can't do everything for everybody, but we are doing it. You guys are doing an excellent job, and we need to let people know what kind of job our teachers and administration are doing.
Thanks, Ruth. Thanks, Angela. Let's see, we have a request for an additional school choice seat.
Yeah, I'd probably defer to the principal to present this, but I do concur with her recommendation.
Okay.
sure, we have 2 siblings coming in from Clinton. The dad called up. We do have a slot for the 1st grader to come in, but he has 2 of them, and he did want his 3rd grader in as well. So we did not have that slot open currently. The enrollment now in 3rd grade is 31 students, 15 in one class and 16 in the other. So it really wouldn't be a hardship to put that child in the 3rd grade so that the younger sibling can attend 1st grade.
I'm just looking at this data that we got here, so let's see. 1st grade, you said we have plenty of space.
1st grade we probably won't.
17. Okay, Carol says okay. And 3rd grade is 25, and there are 2 classes. Is that correct?
Oh, 2010, I'm giving you the wrong one.
Yeah, we have, as of this week, we have 31. We have 15 in one class and 16 in the other.
Okay.
I'm showing it. 31.
I think we always have tried to keep families, especially when maybe the oldest child becomes a school choice student in kindergarten, and then maybe the 2nd sibling and the 3rd sibling come along. We've tried very hard to, because you want the whole family to be involved in the school, not just one child out of 3 or something. But does anybody have any questions? Nikki? Do I hear a motion to approve the additional school choice seat in the 3rd grade?
So moved.
A second. Okay, anything else to be said? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Carol. And we have a social networking policy that we did talk about at the region, I think, at the last meeting, and approved for a first read at the last meeting at the region. I think Ruth and I sort of have looked at it. We want to make sure that Nikki has a chance to take a look too. Just to get it started, I guess. So do I hear a motion to approve the social networking policy for the Berlin School District?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Mike, do you have anything else to add? Or?
No, it's just that it's a policy that needs to be put into place. I mean, as you know, it's just something that's come up with technology now with Facebook and Twitter, and we do have a acceptable use policy for our technology, which we've had for many, many years, and this just enhances it to cover this with expectation of staff using, even though they are staff, they do represent Berlin students here. They are part of the Berlin faculty here, as well as administration, okay, and school committee, and just some of the expectations that we have here with this policy and what it's covering. And that's to protect not only just the students, it's also protect the staff, parents, administration, everyone.
Okay. So anything else to be said? This is for a first read. And then it will come back again for a second read? Or?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
I know I mentioned at the regional level, just to get kind of a feedback from the staff.
I did send it out.
Okay. So
I sent it out to
see.
all.
That's good.
The administrators.
So perhaps, when it comes for a second read, you can just let us know if there's
Any response? Certainly.
suggestions or anything. I mean, I thought it was a really good policy.
Yes, this policy has been vetted out by the Master Association of School Committees, Master Association of School Superintendents. So it's been, a lot of eyes have looked at it, including the attorneys that represent both of those groups.
Okay. So I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We will be going to the MASC MASS conference soon. I believe it's like the 9th, I think, of November. I will be.
10th, I think it's 10th.
Okay. I'm not sure.
Is it Wednesday?
Whatever that Wednesday is.
Oh, it is the 9th. Yeah.
Okay. And so.
9th, 10th, 11th.
Right.
If you go through the whole thing, yeah.
And they do have a, sort of like a town meeting to talk about resolutions to put forward. And we've asked Mike to give us like a recommendation for the different resolutions. And he has in his email to us before the meeting. Have you had a chance to take a look? And did you want to add anything about any of the?
Well, since Mrs. Ryan is not here, I'd be glad to.
She watches these meetings, though.
Uh-oh. I mean, obviously, most of the resolutions that are being put on the floor, I certainly agree with. I mean, the only one that and I evidence is the high school, so this is not new. But it was just one on the vocational resolution, one proposed by the vocational schools to make it mandatory that we will provide students with access to vocational education to do the exploratory sites for grade 8. We do this, okay, it's something we'll continue to do. We do believe that students, I mean, I'm sure the committee does, from what I've seen in the past, I know the administration does, there are students that wish a vocational education, that need a vocational education. We're certainly going to endorse that, and we're going to support that, regardless of whether it's mandated by law. But this resolution, as we talked about, mandates, it just, I don't know, it just irks me that they're mandating it, that our own people the school committees are mandating other school committees do this function. We will do this, we will do what's right, but I just don't go along with it being as a mandate that you shall, that you will. I mean, you will do what's right, okay?
You know, as I read that, I really think that we are doing what the resolution says anyway.
We do.
And so I think we would qualify as doing that anyway, but,
I think if there's issues with the vocational school district, with the towns that are supporting them, that they're not complying with the law, then I think those vocational school districts should take it up with those
Right.
representative towns, but not mandate it across the state for everyone that's doing the right thing. That's
I
a
think-
pet peeve of mine, but that's,
right.
you asked me to look them over, and I'm just giving you my opinion on that. So when it comes up on the floor, that's a good time to amend it on the floor.
Right. right.
Okay.
I mean, I think that, we
I'll be
did-
glad to speak on Lynn's behalf if she's not there. The other ones you had, of course, teacher evaluation. There were a lot of questions in this resolution that was passed. A lot of this is going to be subject to collective bargaining on the proposal that's here on teacher evaluation. I mean, a lot of it has to do with funding, to give us funding if we're going to implement the new state teacher evaluation and administrator evaluation standards that are coming out, and they're going to be promulgated. The pilots programs, as you know, are going on right now. They'll be mandated for next year. But of course, they still have to go through collective bargaining, and the devil's in the details in terms of how this is going to be worked out. I certainly don't have any issues with the resolution in terms of supporting the state giving us what I think is a new mandate. The commissioner disagrees. He feels though that the evaluation's been in place for a long period of time, and this is just an enhancement of the evaluation system. I think it's a new mandate, and if so, they should definitely fund it. Charter school funding resolution 3, totally agree that the state should indeed, if they're going to run charter schools, they should fund the local schools for the money that they're losing to fund charter schools on the other end. Nothing against charter schools, just that if the funding mechanism should be there. If the state wants to create that, then they should fund it out of their own coffers and not take it off the top for local school districts. Enactment for freeze on the federal regulations pending the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind Act. I doubt that has any success. I mean, I think though on the floor that it might make a lot of sense to petition all the Massachusetts Association of School Committees to petition the commissioner to basically waive the state out of some of the burdensome NCLB regulations. That, I think, has a great chance of passing, and that's probably something I would advocate for on the floor when that comes up, versus the freeze on the regulations. It's so encompassing, trying to change federal law. I mean, well, it's noble, but I think you might be better off to try and because the waiver is going to come up, and there's going to be pressure on us pressure on the commissioner and the governor to waive Massachusetts from NCLB some of those ponderous requirements, and I think you're better off with your time served to take that tact. And the state educator evaluation process, yes, I do agree totally with Resolution 5. This state should fund, if they're going to have this as a major renovation of standards regarding the new evaluation process, they should fund it.
Okay. Is there anything that, Ruth or Nikki, you want to add? You feel you agree pretty much with Mike? Because I'll be the one who, needs to
Those are just
listen to
my
any
thoughts, I mean.
listen to any of the amendments, and I want to know, whether you generally agree. I'll have these recommendations and the resolutions with me, and
I do agree.
okay.
I do as well, especially resolution 1.
Okay. All right, good to know.
You have all my notes on that, too.
Yes, I have those. So I think we're all set with the resolutions, or do we need to take a vote?
Who's going to be on the,
I'm going to be there.
just authorize Chris to act on behalf of the Berlin School Committee?
So moved. Second.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Let's see, school committee meeting dates.
Our favorite topic.
Yes. And one of the things we need to talk about is moving the November meeting, I guess, from the 9th, because we we won't have the three of us here for a meeting. And Mike,
Correct.
are you attending the conference also?
I'm going down on, I believe it's Wednesday, because I believe they're gonna talk about regionalization that afternoon.
Okay.
And I wanna, and also in the morning, I think is the MARS meeting, Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools.
Mhm.
So I will be there on Wednesday in the
Okay.
morning for that meeting, and also in the afternoon, I wanna hear what they have to say regarding regionalization and something else later on that day I wanna hear about. I guess I can't remember the entire agenda, so
Okay.
I'll definitely be going down that day.
All right. So we will need to move that date, and
So I think in my notes I had, you have November 2nd is is going to be the regional meeting, so that date is out. The 8th is the night, is it, oh, I got, school building committee is on the 8th.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. November 9th, where you normally meet, you'll be at the MASC conference. I assume the Thursday the 10th also would be out that evening, I would imagine. I can certainly make it. I don't know if people will be, if you wanted to meet on the night, or whether you still be at the conference or whatever, but that's.
I'll still be at the conference. I think
Okay.
I'll probably be there till Friday or maybe Saturday morning.
Okay. And the 14th to the 18th, that week is no good for me. I could meet on the 21st is open, 22nd is open. I don't think you want to meet on the 23rd, the night before Thanksgiving.
Nah.
No, I don't think so. But the 21st or 22nd certainly are open.
So-
28th, I'm booked with negotiations with Boylston.
And November 2nd is the date that we will be meeting in November for the region, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you said the 14th is out,
Right.
and the 15th?
That whole week for me. Yeah,
Okay.
That week for me is out.
Oh, all right, okay. Well,
The 22nd?
the 21st or the 22nd, I guess?
22nd, how would work?
How would you?
Or the 21st?
The
It's a Monday.
21st would work for you?
Monday.
Monday?
I think that would be the better day,
Mhm.
too.
And I think after that, we'll be on
No?
schedule
Is
for the
there
rest
an
of the year.
issue?
I can't do the 21st.
22nd?
Let's see.
We voted no school on Wednesday, so I'm gonna have to say no.
We voted no school for,
The 23rd, there's no
Oh,
school.
oh, oh,
There's no
right.
school, so,
you're gonna say no to
I'm-
the 22nd?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm traveling, I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
That's my,
You're traveling, okay.
yeah,
Is there,
but the next week.
The next week.
Or we just had this one.
or we could give poor Carol a break and say that she doesn't need to be here.
It's up to you.
I mean, if
You can
there's
do that.
nothing.
Nothing
pending.
mandating her presence.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, is there a school
Something going on.
improvement plan or?
School improvement plan.
This-
How about,
this-
um,
The next one, I was going to present the school improvement plan.
Oh,
Do you want to do the
28th.
the 28th then? What does it look like we're doing in December? We're not meeting till the 14th, so.
have
Otherwise, we'll be doing 2 days in a
So you
row.
negotiate, he has
negotiations on the 28th.
Unless you want to do it.
So happens we work with 3 school districts, everybody wants their share of you.
Unless you want to go back to the first week or the regional, we can have 2 meetings in that week.
November
But
3rd?
But it's not that long, it's not that far away.
Right. Is the school improvement plan on its way to being finalized?
Yeah, I just
Oh,
have to
okay.
clean up. The school council already reviewed it with me, so I just have to clean up a few things in it.
What day were you? The only one I'm thinking of is the 3rd.
What was the date, I'm sorry?
We
The
have-
3rd
Of,
November,
We have link.
way back after, the day after the region meeting?
that's.
Is there, I mean, is it,
So
does
it's
it
all right
make
by me.
sense?
Or the 7th, I don't know, that's a Monday before the conference week. I don't know, we had something going on the 7th.
What's your school improvement plan due?
Does that have any?
To the state?
Doesn't have anything on my calendar, but.
We never
What
sent
day are we
it to
talking?
the state.
Oh,
What day
that's
are you
right.
leaving?
You don't have
The
to,
9th?
no, yeah, I
We
think
could
you
do
might
it
leave
the
this
8th.
year.
Oh.
Unless you
Oh,
got
that's the
some-
building
Oh,
committee
okay,
meeting.
that's right, so we could
I
do
think
the
you do.
7th.
I have 3 big board meetings in the beginning of
On the
November.
7th. Oh,
Is the 7th?
is that it?
7th, that's a Monday, that's probably doable.
Told you this was our favorite topic.
What day is that?
The 7th?
Fine.
7th work for you, Carol?
See, it's not us, it's Carol.
How about the 3rd?
Or the 3rd?
The 3rd is good. I've just got
7th
approval,
is more important.
permission from the Link president. And
Oh.
I'll come thereafter.
3rd work?
You said the 7th, right?
And
No,
then
no,
Carol
we're down
said
to the
no.
3rd.
The 3rd.
November 3rd.
I'll have the plan ready.
Fine by me.
The 3rd?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it ends up, because one of the board meetings that I have to attend is still up in the air, I may not be able to attend, but I'll let you guys know in advance.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. Or you'll be late.
Right, well, it's in Boston
Oh.
at night, so.
Oh, all right.
It's dinners
Okay.
and, so,
All right.
unless you want to be here
So
till 10, I'll meet
tentatively,
at 10.
we will say the 3rd.
7 o'clock here, yep.
Good?
We have a vote from, we have a suggestion from the floor out there. I don't-
We have a suggestion?
So right now, we're going with.
No?
the-
Can you start your meeting a little earlier?
Fine by me.
Is that gonna work for you?
Nikki, well, if it's either you can or you can't.
Right,
So
if I need to be, so like start at 6 or?
6:30? 6?
We can start our meeting early though. Let's go.
One of these days I'm gonna get to those
So that
that
Carol
meeting.
comes hours first and then, not November 3rd.
No, probably not.
We'll start hours early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that work if we start ours at 6:30? That way we can have the principals Q&A.
Okay. If that works for you?
Yeah,
Then we'll
that's
stick with 7.
Great, okay.
Okay.
Unless you want to go
Well, we'll post it for 7, and if we have to wait a little bit, we'll wait a few minutes
We
or
have other-
something.
I'm sure there'll be other things on the agenda that we can go through.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, you can move around as you see fit.
Okay.
Beginning of November's always so tough.
Yeah. So it will be
Wow.
November 3rd.
2 nights in a row.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Increasing pressure to run a short regional meeting.
Hey, we've been doing pretty good, I think, haven't we? No?
Well, yeah, we've been, yep, 3 for 4.
Yeah. one was-
As the,
Not that anybody's keeping count except me,
As the amount
but-
of stuff like accumulates, you know, it's tough. And is that the extent of the discussion we need tonight, or do we need to do a little bit more as far as the dates?
No, I would just go with that, then you set the region. I think after that, you're gonna just run your meetings like on schedule for the remainder of the year.
Okay.
Should be able to run
Are
them.
we're gonna be on the second Wednesday then from?
I would have, once again, this is not, I don't construct these calendars, the school
Right.
committees do. Okay, but I assume you would run as it's just set up here.
Okay. I'm just not sure, I mean,
Yeah,
I
this
think
is the
either
3rd.
Mike or Ruth probably needs to speak with Lynn and see if these dates work for her for the region.
Oh, mm-hmm.
I don't know, but that's really, I mean, Berlin's all set, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. All right. If we're all set, then we'll move on to the public or school committee comments. You have a question? Ms. Carroll, you have a question too, or a comment?
If I could just go back, I was going to say earlier at the agenda, Dr. Grohl, you said that the budget, or that Courtney handed out tonight, were open for people to see.
Yep.
Would it be possible
Yes.
for you to have some of those at the school committee meetings?
Oh, sure.
Sure. A couple extra copies?
You know, as you're
Right.
discussing it, then we can have
Sure.
something to look at.
Yeah, no problem.
Here's one right here if you'd like.
We probably could. We generally haven't, 'cause no one's ever asked for it.
When, with the open meeting law, you have to attach each of the documents that we talk about with the minutes and the agenda when you file them together. And so they're always, I mean, everything's available through the central office too, but, yes, I know. And occasionally we have done that. I think if we just sort of kind of forgot. But here's a copy here, and I have a copy too, if anybody else does want one. Okay. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, the superintendent search, hopefully it's going slow. Because you're pretty high going right now.
It's going really slow right now. I think we're gonna have to pick it up probably, after Christmas, or?
You have my memo on that.
I don't know if you wanna talk about it, or if we just wanna wait till the region meeting and have a discussion, or?
Well, you may want to, I think just in terms of diplomacy, you know, with everyone together, with all three committees together, it would probably be a good time to approach it. Everyone has the information as it is right now. And we can construct where we want to go with it at that point in time.
Okay, we need to put it on the agenda, more or less, at the region.
Okay, I mean, has there been a formal communication on it or something? Or it sounds like you have my memo on it, sounds like there's been communication.
It's been just an informational.
Just informational.
Memo from Mike to the committee. But we do need to put it on the agenda, and we'll address it then. There's something else I was gonna say, and now I can't remember. Oh, well. Okay. If there's no more questions. Oh, Mike, I did see the informational in here about the tables, or the computer tables that they're now considered salvage, and you'll be
Contacting the person in Berlin, I forgot who it was. Cheryl Nelson knows who did to come up and get the tables unless anybody wants them.
Okay.
You know, for the public, we do have computer tables. I think there are 4 of them. They are housed down in the bottom basement of the Boyce Municipal Building, right below the police department, and have been declared salvage by the Board of Selectmen, also by this committee here. So, not hearing anything, we do have someone that's interested for them for salvage. We'll have them come pick them up.
Okay, there you go. It's public notice.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see, future agenda items. Did you have anything in your notes?
I just have the social networking policy.
You have the school improvement plan, would be one. I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, I mean to.
That's okay. I had that on my list too.
And I think you were on articles for capital planning.
Right, like a vote on any articles for capital requests and the outstanding warrant articles.
I have to say that Courtney's been working very, very closely with the selectmen on all the HVAC stuff at the school, which is the ARA grant, which has been a lot of trials and tribulations on that. I'll probably never apply for another one again.
That'll teach you to apply for a federal grant, right?
Yeah, I think Selectman Bowman would agree with us on that too. More than agree with us on that. She's actually done a great job working with us too, and has spent a lot of hours. So the Selectman's office working with us, and we've also worked with her on that to get that resolved through that grant, but that grant is very, very, very difficult and cumbersome to work with.
I appreciate all your hard work for that too.
Well, actually, Courtney's the one that's actually taken the lead on this.
Yeah.
And Joe Baldessari too.
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me.
Julie, myself, and Joe have met a number of times.
But I think that will be we'll all work that together when we start talking about the capital. Capital request, that will all be like one package.
Okay, great. One other thing I forgot to say was I really, and I'm sure Ruth feels the same way, that we really appreciate being asked to read to the kids at Community Reading Day on Tuesday. And all those first graders that I read to, they're probably in bed by now, but they were a good group. Good group.
Jessica was one of the ones I had in my group.
Oh, great.
Cool.
Highlight of the week.
And Mike, yes, and Mike was there too.
A lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Which is which? Did you pick that book up?
No.
Okay.
I don't say yes, no.
It was
All right.
what?
Do we have need for executive session, Mike?
No.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.